This broadcast of In Focus is being made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you. And by First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together. Good evening, and thanks for joining us for this edition of In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of WCTV. Glad you're able to join us for this In Focus, where hopefully we'll have some fun, some lighthearted conversation. The Olympics are kicking off tonight, so we're going to talk some athletics, some IU East Red Wolves athletics, and we've got the Sports Information Director and Assistant Athletic Director Kyle Wright with us. We also have the broadcast voice of the Red Wolves. See, I don't want a thing with Dennis going on, so we'll say the broadcast voice of the Red Wolves with us. Before we get to that, I want to remind you that tomorrow at noon is the last time for candidates to be able to file. So my question to you, as it has been for a couple of weeks, are you registered to vote? If not, you still have time to do that. It is your civic duty, our civic duty. For those of us that either are too scared, love our families too much, or whatever the case may be, we won't put our names on a ballot, we need to show up and vote. So obviously the primary, there are some races. Wayne County Sheriff on the Republican side, as an example, will be up. There will also be some races for U.S. Senate, also Congress, and then even if you're not getting involved in the primary, you're already registered for the fall election. So that's when it's going to be very important, and there will be a number of contested races in our immediate area. So we do urge you to go out and get registered to vote, do your civic duty, take your kids with you so that they get used to it. It's something that we should all very much be involved in. Now let's have some fun. Kyle Wright, Assistant Athletic Director, Sports Information Director for the IU East Red Wolves, is joining us. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Glad to be here.
Been able to work with you for a number of years. For the most part, you try to stay behind the scenes as much as possible. Somehow you stay out of the sight of the cameras and things of that nature, although you do periodically step in and are a guest or sometimes even host Inside IU East Sports, which is a program that we air Friday nights here on WETV. Tell us a little bit about yourself first. Let's start with your background. Who are you? Where'd you grow up? Why are you here at IU East? How long have you been here?
Well, I was born and raised in Wayne County. Grew up just outside of Williamsburg, which is part of the Northeastern School District, which was where I graduated from. Actually played in the old Gus Macker on the IU East campus. Took my ACT on the IU East campus. Nice. The first one was a more fun memory than the second, but had a few connections with IU East that way. Then went to College of Valparaiso University, which is in Northwest Indiana, very close to Chicago, actually. Was a journalism major there, which led to a career in newspapers, starting in Lafayette for about 5 years. Was able to cover a lot of high schools there, a little bit at Purdue University, and then went on to the Florida Panhandle for about 5 years, also in newspapers, both as an editor and on the sports side as well. About 5 years into that, that's when my wife Sunny and I had our child Kyson. All of the grandparents were still in either Wayne County or in the Elwood area, which is about 90 minutes away from here. So we were looking for a way to get back. In the meantime of all that, IU East had started intercollegiate athletics, and by joining the NAIA, one of the requirements of that is you have to have someone who, basically sports marketing or sports stats or sports writing, you have to have someone who does that. Okay. There were a few students before me who did a great job kind of getting things off the ground when the school joined the NAIA, but that's when IU East, thankfully for me, decided that, okay, we're going to look for someone in a full-time role to do these tasks, and one thing led to another, and I was the choice for that and have been there ever since. So just great timing for me to have the opportunity to come back and My experience as an editor told me that I definitely wanted to stay in sports and not so much in news. So it's just a great way to get back here and get back into sports, and have been here ever since.
Have you always kind of been a sports junkie? Is it something that you've always loved, either participating in or watching? Or
It has. My dad was a longtime coach at Northeastern, coached 3 sports, and so that meant that I was around those 3 sports a lot of the time. My interest in sports writing, in retrospect, I realized maybe this wasn't normal, but I didn't realize it at the time. But the old double dribble Nintendo game, not only would I play it a lot, but then I would write recaps of the games after the fact as a 7th grader, which in retrospect maybe wasn't going on in households across America. But my mother wisely made the comment, if you enjoy it so much, maybe that's something you should look at as a career. And been on that track ever since. So ever since I was in middle school, that was kind of had a rough idea that if the pro tennis thing didn't work out, which it did not, then staying involved in writing as a sports writer would be a good way to stay involved in sports.
I was going to ask what your sport was. What did you play? What did you enjoy most? You
Tennis,
talked about the Gus Macker.
I did play. I mean, born and raised in Indiana, you play basketball, so I did play a little bit. Did the 2-mile and track. Tennis is probably what I had the most success at. Had a pretty good run at Northeastern. I was able to play at Valpo for 3 of my 4 years. Still help out with the Amigos program and with some other youngsters in the area as far as teaching tennis. So that's probably the one that I have the most interest in.
Cool. You mentioned that IU East is part of the NAIA. Most people that are sports obviously know the NCAA. What's the difference between the NCAA, NAIA, and where does IU East kind of fall in that Division 1, 2, 3 type of situation?
So NAIA is a completely separate organization from the NCAA. What's great for IU East as far as basically a startup athletics program 10 years ago, there's just a lot less financial burden or requirements. For example, to be NCAA Division II, you have to have a certain amount of facilities on campus, which obviously IU East, we're just in the process of adding these things. A certain amount of your coaches have to be actual faculty members, which at that point in IU East development, that would have been a tough investment to make. So NAIA, it's a separate organization. If we're being frank, typically a typical NAIA school is a little bit under a Division II school and a little bit over a Division III school as far as competitive ability. I can give you millions of examples of exceptions, but as a rule, that's about where it falls. And for a startup program, which is really IU East is only a decade into intercollegiate athletics, since there's not nearly as many financial burdens, it's a much more realistic option for a school that's looking to get into intercollegiate athletics and to do so at a good level. Also with an emphasis on character. The whole motto of the NAIA is champions of character, and that's one of the first things that you're expected to think about when you're conducting any kind of athletic event at the NAIA level. So that's a nice distinguishing factor as well.
You talk about being a startup program. It is, but it's a startup program that almost for the full 10 years has been in growth mode. What is the complement of sports here on campus right now?
You didn't tell me there'd be a test, but we're up to 15. 10 years ago started.
Wait, I thought it was 15?
15.
I'm missing one there.
It started as 3 10 years ago, so basically adding 2 teams every other year or so. The 3 that the campus started with at the varsity level were men's basketball, men's golf, and volleyball. Since then, of course, I've also added women's basketball and women's golf. And then the others, let's see, that's 5 right there. So men's and women's tennis, men's and women's cross country, men's and women's indoor and outdoor track and field, that counts as 4. And that means I'm leaving one out. Soccer, how can I do that, which just got added this past fall, which brought us to 15. So nice balance between the fall, winter, and spring seasons, and a nice complement of offerings for the students that come to IU East.
We talk about here on this program a lot economic development and bringing people in and jobs and things of that nature. The number of coaches that it takes to run programs like that, not just head coaches, but assistant coaches. The students that you bring into this area, the teams that come into this area, I'm not sure that the community completely understands when you say 15 sports, how many different teams are coming in out of here. First of all, you are part of a conference. You started in the KIAC, I think. It became the River States Conference. That conference, I think, has grown in the number of schools. Talk about kind of where the region is or the area is that your conference covers and how far you all travel.
Okay, the conference, as you mentioned, River States Conference, so named because every state in the conference touches the Ohio River. The footprint spans from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on one corner to Beckley, West Virginia in another corner to Kokomo, Indiana, obviously a short drive up the road from here, down to Owensboro, Kentucky across the river from Evansville on the southwest side. IU East, thankfully, we're in the middle, so our longest trip in any direction is about 5 hours. Schools similar IU regional campuses, IU Kokomo and IU Southeast. Point Park is the Pittsburgh school, West Virginia Tech is the West Virginia school, and several schools in between. 13 members, and just a really good fit, all about the same size. The competition's great across the board. There's no school, as much as we would like to dominate everything, no one does. It's very competitive across the board. And as far as what it brings to the community, had occasion to look up. 5 years ago, IU East hosted about 15 events total. Volleyball, basketball, the whole year, 15 events for the whole school year.
Right.
You were part of this just this past November with hosting a
What
couple
a
of basketball.
nightmare.
There were 15 events, as you well know, just in the first 2 weeks of November between hosting a couple basketball tournaments and the Volleyball Conference Championship. That's just a 2-week snippet. Once upon a time, that was a whole year worth of things. So just to bring in a lot of folks, a lot of fans to appreciate a good level of college competition right here in Richmond.
And the Red Wolves have been incredibly successful. You've mentioned the volleyball team, and obviously that's one that people were watching very early on because they were hitting the national tournament incredibly early. The basketball teams, men's and women's, have done well. Actually, you've had a number of athletes, individual as well as teams, that have done very well.
Right, just in those 10 years, of the 15 sports that I referenced, I want to say 10 of them have already been represented at the national tournament in some way, shape, or form, either by the whole team advancing or by select individuals qualifying as an individual. So again, thinking back from square one, and some of these sports are considerably less than 10 years old, but for that high of a percentage to have already been represented at the national level, that's something that we're very proud of as a department and for the athletes that made that happen.
And it's happened very early in some of the lifespan, basically, of some of the teams. The women's basketball team is one, being as highly ranked as they were and going to the tournament last year in only their 3rd year of competition, I believe.
Right. Actually, they made it to the tournament in their 2nd year and then won the conference and won a game at the national tournament in just their 3rd year. So, yeah, just amazing to reach the Sweet 16 at that level in just year 3. Volleyball had a similar track when it started. It was in the national tournament by year 3.
The men have done very well in basketball
5,
the last few years.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's one of those things, there's a saying I have, it's like you crossed a tightrope, but you never actually realized you were on a tightrope until you look back. And kind of the same thing. We're kind of in the middle of it, so we don't really realize how amazing it is, but in a situation like this, when we can look back, it's like, wow, some really nice things have happened in a pretty amazing amount of time.
Talk about how your life has changed, gotten easier or not, with some of those sports moving onto campus. When it started, the women were playing their volleyball at Seton. The men were playing basketball at the Tiernan Center. Those sports are now here. Cross country, I think, is handled here. Tennis has a facility at a regular facility that they play at in Glenn Miller Park. Talk about some of the facilities that you have, and particularly bringing some of those sports here on campus.
Right. I guess imagine if you or anyone watching, if you had to, every single time you had basically once a week, you had to pack your entire office into a tote, take your office somewhere else, unpack that office, have a 2-hour event, repack your office, and bring it back to work. And that's kind of the life that IU East Athletics lived for until the facilities were built here. Not just for the workers, but for the athletes as well. There were a few years where their locker was their tote, their plastic tote that they carried back and forth from events. And Richmond, Seton, all the places you mentioned, they were great to us as far as opening their doors and making time for us. And they did a lot of work for us too. So it was a great experience, and they made it a great experience when we were there. But there's nothing like having your own home. And I think that's been the biggest thing for our athletes since the Student Event Center Lingle Court was finished at the start of last school year. So just the pride that our athletes have of having a home, you can just see that in their eyes that they really take pride in having their own building. You mentioned the tennis courts have been refurbished at Glenn Miller Park. before we would maybe even kind of encourage teams to, we'll come to you, it's all right. But now teams are very eager to come to us to play matches. We've actually got some pretty, in the college tennis world, some pretty high profile teams that sought us out to come play on our courts, which never would have happened 3 years ago. But just, I'll go back to the students, just the ability for them to say, hey, we've got a home, we can protect our home court, this is our house. That's been a really neat thing to see for the athletes that have come through in the last few years.
Talk about some of the students and the recruiting process that it takes. I know for some people they would think, okay, well, it's IU East, it's in Richmond. Their recruiting is, you know, the local schools, maybe a little bit in the region. It's expanded well beyond that, hasn't it?
It's expanded actually to 4 countries even. Tim Scales, who I know is a frequent visitor on this set, but he was giving a report. At this exact moment, it's about almost 200 athletes, 8 states, 4 countries even. Some tennis players from Chile. We had some soccer player. We actually just added one from Brazil. See, the states, basically the entire Midwest. If you draw a circle around the Great Lakes, there's athletes from every state. And it's not just taking whoever shows up. Our coaches have a saying, if you want one player, not even a superstar, but a player, you better talk to 100, because of the 100 you make a phone call to, if all goes well, about 10 of them will visit, and of those 10 that visit, if all goes well, one of them will actually come to IU East. So I mentioned there's almost 200 here. My math's a little shaky. So whatever 200 times 100 is, that's how many students at some point were contacted to bring those 200 students to campus. But you mentioned the local. There have been some really nice local success stories. Even just this year. Ashley Tushlog, a Centerville graduate, qualified for the national meet in cross country and basically rewrote our record book. Sarah Hornack, who went to Seton, a Richmond resident, came back to IU East, competes in cross country and track and field. Recently set a few school records in the 400 and 800 for our track and field team. Jordan Prim, I'm mentioning her name. Your viewers might know her better as Jordan McGuire when she played soccer for Richmond High School, was the very first signee for the women's soccer program when we were getting that off the ground. So yes, there are athletes coming from literally across the world, but there's also some ones right here at home that have come and done some really nice things here at IU East.
What's the growth of the program look like over the next couple of years as you all sit in your office in Springwood Hall and talk about where you want to go, how you want to build? What's next? More facilities on this campus, or what are you thinking about?
Probably the most immediate facility will be, at the start, it'll be a soccer practice field. As you can imagine, there's a lot of things that could evolve into, but to start, it'll be a soccer practice field. For those that are familiar with, if anyone has competed in the Run with the Wolves, which is on our cross-country course,
correct,
basically the lower cornfield, the lower part of that figure 8, it was flat enough that it was a pretty, relatively speaking, easy transition to make that into a soccer practice field. So still let Mother Nature do its work as far as the grass being flat enough to have a safe soccer practice without any ankles being rolled. But that's probably the next thing we'll see as far as a visible thing on campus. And then the other thing, just kind of consolidating the growth we have. We have pretty good numbers for our teams, but for sports like track and field, cross country, it's really a numbers game. And to some, the thing I always tell people about track and field, you could literally win every event at the conference track and field meet and not win the event as a team because it's such a numbers game. Right. So there's some sports where just kind of consolidate our numbers a little bit, and then once that's accomplished, there's actually not a whole lot of sports the NAI has left to offer that we don't have that would make sense. So once we get these sports consolidated, it's a pretty short list actually what we even could add, but we look forward to just bigger and better as time goes on.
Cool. We're down to our last couple of minutes before we bring Kaleb in. Would be remiss if we didn't talk about the upcoming conference tournament or the wrap-up of the season. The men rated number 2. Got to throw a little love that way.
Number 2 in the nation. The women are number 29. We're coming up on the last week of the regular season. Senior Day is Saturday the 17th against Ohio Christian. And then if all goes well, the men have the right to host every round of the conference tournament. Those dates would be the 21st, 24th, and 27th of February. Women still got to get a few more wins to host some of those games. If they are fortunate enough to host, those dates would be the same as well. So looking forward, again, if you're in Indiana, you look forward to this time of year. Basketball postseasons, that is the time of year.
Cool. It takes somebody to help broadcast these games, whether they're on WETV or whether you all have your live stream going, and we'll talk a little bit about how IU East reaches out using various mediums as we continue with In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
Hi, I'm Kaleb Gillock, voice of the IU East Red Wolves, and I'm inviting you to join me on Friday nights for Inside IU East Sports. Each week, we'll get to meet students, coaches, and others who impact the growing IU East athletics program. Watch Inside IU East Sports Friday nights at 8:30 on Wayne County's Education Access Station, WETV Channel 20.
Life can sometimes be chaotic. And with small children, it can be difficult to get to the doctor.
Hi, Mrs. Towns. How are you doing?
I have a sick little boy right here. I think he might have an ear infection.
With Read Health Now virtual visits, you don't even need to leave your home.
I'll send in a prescription for him.
Quick, easy, convenient.
I didn't want to take the kids out today.
Oh, hey, Doc.
Read Health, right beside you, right now.
Welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television. Talking some sports this evening. The Olympics kicking off. It's coming up on March Madness. You can feel it. Purdue lost last night. And we're just dealing with some sports here. And we've welcomed into the studio somebody who's used to being in here, Kaleb Gillock.
It's weird being on this side.
I was going to say, you don't get to sit there very much. You're normally on this side asking the questions.
Right.
Kaleb is a graduate of Newcastle, up the road, high school. How did you find out and get involved and even begin thinking about being the broadcast voice of the Red Wolves? How did that come about?
It's really kind of a long story. It kind of goes back to when I was even in elementary school. One of my mentors was it still is the public address announcer over there at Newcastle. And in the basement at my home, we actually taped out a basketball court on the basement floor. And we'd play games down there, and we had a karaoke machine, and I'd always try to imitate his voice. And that led me getting into PA announcing. A lot of people say to this day that he and I sound exactly alike, and I fill in for games for him, and nobody ever notices a difference. And oftentimes people ask me if I'm his son, but because of how much we sound alike. But he also kind of introduced the play-by-play aspect of it to me, and I got some opportunities through him and through a couple of other people, and ultimately led up to Kyle reaching out to me and landed here.
You have been here for 4 years. You're a senior.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. It's flown by.
It has flown by.
Yeah.
How's the experience been for you as both a student and somebody interested in developing and going into the broadcast business?
It's been an awesome experience because of the opportunities that I've gotten. I mean, if I was to go to a bigger school with, a well-known program, I'd be competing for airtime. As to where when I came here, I was in front of the camera behind the mic on day one, I think that's the big thing that I've really been able to take away from it, besides the number of reps that I get. I've been here the last 3 years every Monday doing the TV show, this year every other Monday. And then, whoever knows how many games that we do. I know I lost track after the 17 in a week that we did there in the fall. So, but I mean, that many reps, I think, is very beneficial. So it's been a great opportunity for me to have here.
Now, if you're on Twitter and you like following sports, KWG Productions, follow on Twitter. What started that? How long have you been doing that?
That actually started back when I was in high school, when I first started out in the play-by-play side of it, because I was trying to gather up sponsors to go down and broadcast my sister's softball World Series. It was actually, I didn't know how to get to the live streaming aspect of it like I know now. So I was going to try to record everything, upload it to a website that I got for free online. So I started out, had 20-some different sponsors, and then that's kind of carried over into me, you know, trying to get my name out and covering all the local sports there in Henry County, even some of the local colleges and professional sports at that point.
What do you want to do when you leave here? Have you thought about that? What your
I've thought
dream
about
job
it, and
might
I've
be?
torn apart in all different directions because I've kind of had my hand in a little bit of everything
Yeah.
over the last few years. But where I set out when I first got into broadcasting is it was my goal to be at ESPN or Fox Sports at the peak of my career. But ultimately, now that graduation's staring me in the face, it's just a couple months away, starting to look at those TV stations both in the local area and maybe even a little outside of the state to see if I can find a job either in sports or news there.
You did an internship at Wish TV. What was that like, stepping from this, where you were the guy doing it all, into a facility like that where what you can actually do was maybe a little bit limited, but you got a chance to actually watch some people that were doing it on a day in, day out basis on that professional level in a market the size of Indy?
Well, it was a very unique experience for one because I thought I knew a lot going into it. And I do know, I feel like there's a lot on the play-by-play side of it. But as far as going in and doing the actual reporting side of it, Kaleb quickly found out there was a lot that he didn't know yet. And that was kind of hard for me to figure out. I mean, it took me a little while to get adjusted, but I think that was the beneficial part of the internship, was because I was able to learn a lot of things that I didn't know, you know, how to properly look for sound bites and cut videos and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of it that I didn't know, that obviously as I start to look for a job is stuff that I need to know, makes me more versatile. And but it was a good experience because, you know, I was, at first, like you said, it was kind of limited as to what I could do. You know, I never really got to hold a camera, do much of that side of it. But they gave me more and more to be responsible for each week, to where at the end of my internship, I was actually producing the show for that evening, writing all the scripts, cutting all the video clips, doing all that stuff, and which at the end of it, we actually got to do our own show for our demo reel, which ended up being, I think, around 5 minutes worth of stuff that we can use for when we start submitting our resumes.
What's been the most fun part of this 4-year ride for you? And I was actually at Newcastle when they were luckily enough to do that. Watch you do some of your first things. A little nervous calling your first volleyball game.
Very nervous calling my first volleyball game because I knew nothing about it at the time. I knew enough to do the PA, announce who was serving and who just scored the point, and that was about it. But you know, I've been really thankful for, you know, Kyle and all the coaches around that. You know, if there's something I needed to know about a sport like volleyball, and then this past year soccer, you know, they always try to clear a little time out of their schedule to sit down and talk with me and teach the game to me. But along with that, I think the friendships that have come along with it, because you know, to an extent, I'd say it's more than just friends; it's family that I've made over these past 4 years with. Not just all the different athletes, because I remember when I first started out, you talked to me, you said, you know, you're not just the play-by-play guy, you're the PR guy. You've got to make them more than just a person with a number on their shirt. And so through getting to know all the different athletes on the teams over the last few years and all the different coaches and creating those friendships that, you know, I hope to have for a long time.
Talk to me, both of you, real quickly. Couple of quick questions. If you hit the guide on your television remote and the top 2 things come up, one is a sports event, one is a movie, what are you hitting? Sports or movie?
Sports, for sure.
Sports. Next.
Hands down.
Favorite sport?
Watching or playing?
Watching.
Football.
Basketball, for sure.
College or pro?
Pro.
College.
Why pro over college?
Honestly, if they would just take away the rule where they stop the clock after every first down, which causes the games to last about 5 hours, I would consider it equal. That is literally my only pet peeve.
As you think about your 4 years, you've been. Do you even know how many games you called in 4 years?
I've lost count.
I'll
He
answer.
probably
Well, I
knows.
don't have the exact number, but it's funny. I was reading Al Michaels' biography or autobiography, who just did play-by-play for the Super Bowl, and he had a point in there that he did about 80 play-by-plays while he was at Arizona State. He's more than double. So he's, more, in my opinion, more than twice as qualified as Al Michaels was coming out of college.
I don't know about that.
How have you been able to balance that? Because he's right. In November, as an example, and it's gone on, there were soccer events going on. There was the women's volleyball tournament going on. The women's, it was the conference tournament that the women got to host. The men's basketball tournament was also taking place, and you were calling games I was scared for your voice. How have you been able to balance that and the number of different people that you've had to work with? Because there have been color analysts that from one game to the next that weren't the same.
Yeah, it's been fun, but it is tough sometimes because with me being a full-time student, I've got classes, I've got homework to balance on top of all that. So there's a lot of late nights that go into it. Late nights followed by an early morning with a couple hours of sleep. But yeah, I mean, that's been kind of the fun but challenging part of it too. You mentioned that I might not have the same analyst from one game to the next, and especially when it comes to those tournaments where, say, we've got 4 games that day and I've got 4 different people sitting by my side. You've really kind of got to get to know them, and after doing a couple of games with them, you kind of know when they are and aren't going to say things and expect what they are and aren't going to say. So, sometimes when that voice does need a break on those busy days, I know how to cue up a question to get them to start talking, So.
You've had some great luck. Adam Derengowski, who was very much into sports, has gone on, is now working in South Bend. Kaleb also had a great work ethic. Who follows Kaleb? How do you keep this going?
We're working on that, and we'd be blessed to have someone remotely as good. We actually did have a prospect from Union County at the game on this past Tuesday. So if folks that were watching the game, they might have seen, if they saw someone very quietly sitting next to Kaleb, that was someone we had in as a potential successor down the road. But yeah, we've had extraordinary luck with someone who's already making a mark in the field and someone who I'm pretty confident is going to. So if we're able to have that luck every 4 years, I'll be a very happy SID.
You ready to graduate?
Yes, but no, if that makes any sense. Yes, in the fact that I'm ready to stop buying textbooks and ready to get out and actually get in the field and submerge myself in it full time. But no, in the fact that it's a little scary, moving out on my own for the first time. Got that to look forward to and figure out how to live on my own. And Mom and Dad aren't going to be buying food and groceries. And
they always do that, at least for a
well,
little while.
Maybe for a little while, but I think I'm kind of looking forward to it at the same time. But it is a little nerve-wracking to think about, not knowing where I'm going next, and hopefully all that starts to unfold here in the next couple of months.
It's been great working with you.
Yeah, you too.
I appreciate you coming in and spending some time with us this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
He'll still be around. Okay,
Yeah.
Brian's talking in my ear going, "You're not going away."
Yeah, I'm not going away.
You still have the rest of the year to go. And thank you for spending some time with us and working out and all you've done. You've been great to work with.
Well, thank you. It's always fun.
Years. And he mentioned his wife, Sunny, very early on. And for those of you that have come in and out of WCTV, during my time here, Sunny Wright was actually our administrative coordinator for about 3 years before she moved over into another office here on campus. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we have a conversations with Sean Dingworth of the Richmond Art Museum. They started a real big renovation. So we've had a chance to go in and take a sneak peek at some of the changes that you may get a chance to see if you're going there this Saturday. So we're going to take a break, come back, and have an interview with Sean Dingworth. Next week, we will be back with I don't want to say best of, but an interview where the Richmond Fire Department will be part of our guest. Thank you for watching tonight's In Focus. Stay tuned. The leaders of First Bank Richmond encourage their employees to give their best effort towards serving the community. One organization very dear to many First Bank Richmond employees is the Third Grade Reading Academy.
First Bank staff volunteers hundreds of hours and even hosts Academy students on site. Doing great things together stands for First Bank's commitment to continue doing all they can to make life better for their customers and our community. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together. Keep up with local government information and shows with WGTV Online. Go to WCTV.info and click on the WGTV Online button. It's a live stream and video on demand site in one. Click the play button, you'll see whatever's on the air on WGTV Channel 11, or scroll down for videos on demand. Choose whatever meeting or show you'd like to watch. It's easy to stay informed with WGTV Online, a service of Whitewater Community Television.
Welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director, and I flew, actually. We are recording this ahead of time. We have a chance to see the renovated Richmond Art Museum, and we were here back around the time of Pottery Palooza and had a chance to talk with Sean Dingworth, the Executive Director here, and we were in this room. And this room looks a lot different
Doesn't it?
than when we were here. There was scaffolding over there and plans on that, and the door was up, no ceiling. It was all open.
Yeah.
It's been a few months now.
Yes.
The change is dramatic. How is it for you?
Yeah, well, we're just thrilled. You know, one of the major projects was to install a new HVAC system, climate control system, as well as just to enhance the space in terms of how people would view art. So we're very excited about the results. We're opening Sunday, February 11th from 1 to 4 to the public. And I encourage people to come see the new space.
Talk a little bit about why you started this process. Sure. What made it necessary?
Sure, and we call it Renewing a Masterpiece. We will be celebrating our 120th anniversary in June.
Wow.
We're the oldest cultural organization in Wayne County, so we're pretty proud of that. But what we needed to do was to improve that climate control. As people know, we have a tremendous permanent collection, but we also want to borrow from other museums and organizations, and in order to do that, we have to have a specific climate, temperature and humidity at all times in order for us to lend works. Also, a fire suppression system was a part of that. Okay. So everything we did in this renovation was to not only protect our important collection, but to give us the ability to borrow works from other institutions so we can bring some exciting shows to Richmond, Wayne County.
I think there may be some people who don't really know how extensive your collection is.
Sure.
What are some of the pieces that you have that maybe people don't see on a regular basis, some of the names that you have here?
Sure, and one of the things we did in this renovation is we have now dedicated 2 galleries, and we're standing in one of those. They'll be dedicated to the permanent collection. So we have about 2,500 objects. We're known for our American Impressionist paintings, and during this renovation we lent hundreds of works out to local libraries. We have our most significant painting, the William Merritt Chase self-portrait, on loan to the Indianapolis Museum of Art. Nice. And then we lent a number of our Richmond Group works to Brown County, sort of our sister art colony in the state, giving those people an opportunity to see what the artists did here in Richmond.
What are some of the differences in this room that they will notice?
Sure, I think lighting is obvious, something they're going to notice. We had carpet on the walls. What that enabled us to do was to rotate shows without having to repair the artwork. So we have a new hanging system, a rail system, so we'll be able to rotate art without damaging the walls.
And we'll see some of that in the other galleries, because in some of the other rooms you've got some things already hanging.
Yes, we'll show you those examples. And here we did an accent wall, and this is going to be for our William Merritt Chase painting when it comes back. It was lent in an international show last year, and it was actually in Venice, Italy. And they used this color blue as the backdrop. And I had the good fortune of being able to go to that exhibition. And so I sort of brought that back to this renovation.
obviously, the renovation is not completely done.
Right.
We're going to walk through.
Yes.
We're going to see another room that we had a chance to go through before. And as we step out into the outer area, you could tell us some of the things that are actually
I'd
taking
like
place.
to highlight one of the art installation pieces that we did.
Sure.
We'll have Ryan behind him take a shot of this if we could. This is by an Indianapolis artist, Quincy Owens. Before the renovation, one of the things we did was we talked to 10th graders at Richmond Community Schools.
That should have been an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and we told them we were doing the renovation, and we said, what would you like to see? And they wanted to see color, light, more contemporary works.
Okay.
So we took that into account, and so this will be, this is actually the First Bank Richmond entrance, and this will be one of the first things people entering from this entrance will see. And we think it's inviting. It follows our mission of supporting Indiana artists.
Okay.
So we're excited about this piece.
The ratcheting that's going up over here.
Yeah, so of course this wouldn't have been possible without all the generous donations that we got from the community. So this will be a digital monitor. It'll show all those wonderful people who gave so generously to the campaign. It'll also enable us to promote upcoming shows, things like Pottery Palooza, the Secret Garden Tour, exhibitions. So we're excited to have that technology as well.
Good. If we go around the corner, the other room that we got a chance to see when we were here for
Yes.
Pottery Palooza, which was also
A mess.
yes, nice way to put it, is now back together again.
It
and we
is.
can see some of the hanging art that you were talking about, how
Right.
you can change the exhibits on the walls.
Exactly.
What is this exhibit going to be right now?
So this is our real popular children's program called Art Is. And this year it is Art Is Africa. It's for grades kindergarten through 3rd grade. We do 4 classes a day, 4 days a week for 2 months.
Wow.
So we have just about 2,000 children that come through this program. And the idea is for the 4 years, each of those years, a child will experience a different culture. And so we expose them to different cultures through art. And so we have borrowed from Earlham College, from our collection, as well as private collections within our community to put these objects together.
This process was how long in the planning? Because obviously they started
Yeah.
tearing this up last fall.
Right.
But that's not when this process
No,
began.
it was part of our strategic plan, which we did 5 years ago. And then, of course, the initial part was to sort of test the waters with the campaign. We went to some of our donors to see if they would buy into what we needed to do and what kind of support we would get. So the first process really was raising that money. And I'm happy to say we raised over $1.7 million, which has gone into this renovation.
Nice. What's the best part about this for you?
Yeah, well, I think getting the facility to museum standards. You know, the LED lighting system that you see in here, we're one of the few museums in the state of Indiana that has that technology. Museums are moving forward with that. It saves energy, and it really enhances the art. And we have the ability with this system to do different scenes in each gallery. So we can specifically set lighting towards each exhibition.
Okay.
Which is great because, you know, artwork such as drawings require less lighting.
Sure.
They're sensitive to light.
Okay.
There will be other exhibitions that we might need more lighting for. So we now have that ability, and I think that's pretty exciting.
Let's walk down toward
Yeah.
the other end. You've moved. Desk has moved in the lobby
Yes,
from one
yes.
side to the other.
Yes, so the idea is now that both entrances are open. This is our First Bank Richmond entrance, and this will be our West End Bank entrance. So now visitors can come from either entrance, and so therefore we moved the front desk so that our receptionist could greet people from both ends, was the idea behind that.
Nice mirror behind
Yeah.
the desk. Tell me about this piece.
Sure, so this piece was presented by Ella Von Johnson, who is our first director at the Richmond Art Museum. So as I said, we're 120 years old, but I am only the 6th director, and that's because she was here for 50 years. So she was really a formidable force in American art. She was known nationally. She would travel throughout the country and talk about the importance of having art in public schools. So she was a real advocate for reaching children at a young age. She had a saying that if we could teach children about war, we can certainly teach them about beauty.
Nice.
And,
I assume she is the reason the art museum is attached to Richmond High School.
Yes, she is one of the reasons.
And that's not something that you find in a lot of places at all.
No, to our knowledge, we're the only public art museum that is housed within an active public high school in the United States. We're aware of some private schools that have galleries, but not that have public schools that have an active museum.
You did some changing on the entrance. You mentioned the West End Bank entrance. Talk a little bit about the opening, what people are going to see, and how they'll see it differently even from the street.
From the street, exactly. So we updated the lighting. More importantly, the doors are all glass, so it lets in more light. It makes it more inviting. We added these 3 chandeliers. Of course, everything got a fresh coat of paint. But I also want to recognize all the original features that we kept throughout the building. The beautiful terrazzo, the marble stone, the marble on the wall, the beautiful detail in the woodwork. This woodwork was a green, and we know that if you use a lighter color, you'll see more detail. And so now you notice all of those dentils in the woodwork. We refinished the beautiful wood doors. So we really wanted to keep a lot of that original, unique character, but then add the things that we need today to operate as a museum.
Did you hear that from some of the donors as you were preparing to do this, that it was important that you keep some of those features?
Yeah, absolutely. These are the original doors with the beautiful brass handles. No, it was very important to us. Out here, really, we had very little to do other than to enhance the architecture. And even the color that was selected to bring out the marble. And I've had a couple donors through that thought we had actually added this marble because they had never noticed it before.
Okay.
So that's kind of exciting.
Makes you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, exactly.
As you step into this room here, now this, you say, this is a change for you.
Right, so now we have 2 rotating galleries. Down there we have what we call our 2 permanent galleries. One will be dedicated to sort of our national work, and the other gallery that I'm real excited about will be dedicated to our regional work and our art collection. So it could be local artists from the 70s, from the 80s, current, we could go back to the 20s. It gives us the ability to get more of the collection out. And that was one of the other things that we told our donors we wanted to do. And as you look throughout the building, you'll see, in fact, the contractors sort of joke that they learned from me that, real estate is everything. So I was very particular, for example, where things like this went, so that it would not affect our ability to hang more art. So in here you'll see the how we've utilized the hanging system. We do have more light to add in here, so this may be showing a little darker than what it would be. But this is a rail system, a hanging system. It gives us the ability to hang art without actually nailing into the wall, so that we constantly don't have to do patch and repair. We're still a small staff. But these 2 galleries will be for rotating shows throughout the year.
Okay, I have to ask, are the benches new?
The benches are not new. We had those refinished as well, and they look absolutely beautiful.
They really do.
So in this gallery, you'll see that we kept the original tiles as well. The other 2 galleries, we were not able to do that. And so there's new flooring in the permanent collection galleries. Right. But these were in good enough shape that we were able to retain those. Again, keeping some of that original character.
Nice. Some of the things that are taking place, you mentioned kind of a reopening
Yes.
this weekend.
Yes. Yeah, so February 11th, we have the opening of this exhibition, which is based on construction.
Oh,
Completely planned. So this is work by Ray Hazard and Marlene Steele. We called the show Hazard and Steele, Concrete Dreams.
you thought about that one at 3 a.m., didn't you?
So these are two renowned Cincinnati artists who have really been recording the growth of Cincinnati and that urban renewal that's occurring in that city. A lot of exciting things happening in Cincinnati. And here we have two artists recording that change, which is exciting. But it does sort of tie in with our own theme. It wasn't so long ago I had to wear a hard hat myself down here. And I will say it's been interesting. The contractors and subcontractors have really enjoyed this show. Many of them had never been to this museum. And I know several are coming back to the opening and they have their eye on some paintings. So these works are for sale, and it'll be up through the month of April.
What are the next couple of shows or things that
Sure.
you have coming up that you can share with us?
Okay, so Art is Africa, which is important educational programs going on through March. Concrete Dreams will be going on through April. Immediately following that, we'll have our annual All Wayne County High School show, which is one of my favorites. You know, to get to celebrate the teenage artists in our county. So they get the winner. School gets a trophy to take. So I sort of call it the sectional for art, which is fun.
Talk for a minute before you go on. You do that with the schools. You've got Fantascope, which
Yes.
is the
High School Film Festival.
A lot of the educational pieces. Talk for a minute about
Sure.
how important that aspect of what you do is to this community, really this region.
Yeah, well, it's really the foundation of our mission. You know, the reason that we're here, we could have gone out and built our own building, but we've always felt it was important to be in the schools, and because we know if kids have access to the arts early on, they're much more likely to be art supporters in the future. But not only that, we know the arts teach critical thinking skills. Which is becoming more and more important as we look to the jobs of the future. And many of the people that supported this renovation are people who firmly believe in providing arts access to kids, and that's why they support us. We do annually about 280 programs. We also have tuition-free classes for children in Wayne County, 16 and under. This is all on our website, richmondartmuseum.org. We're also free of admission here. So everything we do is usually has an education component to it.
Good. Sean, I know you've got lots of things still going on. You're still trying to hang art. I appreciate you taking the time to let us come in here and take a look around. Thanks for being part of Infocus.
I'm glad you got to see the change.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to thank tonight's guests for being with us here on In Focus. Also want to remind you that if your not-for-profit organization has an event that you'd like us to put on the community calendar, feel free to send it to us at least 2 weeks before the event. Email your information, a flyer for it, something to wctv@iue.edu. We're happy to get it on, and there is no charge for that. Some of the things around the community taking place: the book sale for Morrison Reeves Library continues tomorrow, February 9th, from 12:30 to 4:30. Also on Saturday from 10 till 2. Over 8,000 items for sale, Morrison Reeves Library. If you need more information, mrlinfo.org. Bethel AME Church is having their Valentine's brunch on Saturday from 9 till noon, 200 South 6th Street, but you need tickets. Give a call to 962-7241. The Veterans Writing Workshop of Richmond takes place the second Saturday of each month in room 912. That's 912 East Main Street in Uptown Richmond. If you need information, the contact information and IU East email address is there on the screen. Seton Catholic Schools is having their Chocolate Fest and silent auction. That's taking place Saturday from 5 till 8, 801 West Main Street. Again, you need tickets. For information, call Lisa, 969-4919. The Women's Club of Richmond is having a talk from Lynn Johnstone, The Way It Was. That's Tuesday, February 13th, 1:30 in the Fellowship Hall at First English Lutheran Church. For more information, 962-4829 or 962-1686. It's that time of year. If you've got one that's going to be leaving high school, you're thinking about money for college, FAFSA, you have to get it filled out. And there are multiple opportunities to be able to do that. You see some of it on the screen. Coming up on the 13th from 12 to 6, Hagerstown High School, room 106. On the 14th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Richmond High School Library Lab. 25th, you see it's here on the IU East Campus in Tom Raper Hall. Getting into March and even into April, you've got dates there. FAFSA is incredibly important. Please, please, please don't let that go away. Richmond Community Schools, Planning Our Future, community impact meetings. Those are coming up. They want your input on things that will happen in Richmond Community Schools. Test Intermediate on Thursday, February 15th at 6 p.m. Morrison Reeves Library, February 20th, and Richmond High School on February 20th, also at 6 p.m. So both daytime and evening times, you really need to go talk to them. February is Black History Month, and IU East is celebrating with a lecture series. Starts February 15th with Blackonomics, Investing in the Black Community by Cal Simpson. February 22nd, Minorities in Athletics. And February 26th, there'll be a health discussion and mini clinic hosted by Twan Stoker, Director of Wellness at Reed Health. And an event that is always popular, the Family Maple Syrup Festival Day. Saturday, February 17th, 10 to 12 at Cope Environmental Center. Check that out. You can register, and you do need to register for this by calling 855-3188. Thanks to our guests for being part of this show. You can see it in replays if you missed any part of it. It's available also on our video on demand site. We thank you very much for watching In Focus. Have a good evening. This broadcast of In Focus has been made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you. And by First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together.